Hello everyone, this is Deepak Gupta signing again on this platform of College Dekho Learn, and today we will be taking a very important topic, labor turnover. And if you are aware of the latest corporate problems, or if you follow any of the financial news channels such as CNBC etc., then you must have been heard the word attrition, and you must have noticed that for the past few months all the IT companies are facing a problem of attrition, which is putting a pressure on their margin. And hence, if any of you follows their stock prices, then they must have seen that the IT industry, which was the darling of the share market until a short while ago, is at the moment suffering the impacts of the attrition. So today we will try to relate that attrition is actually the labor turnover and what it implies and how it affects the cost of the company. We will discuss that. So the point is that every industry which is creating a output will obviously need human efforts, the labor, and their efforts of the labor will help you get the desired output. Means to get the output, you don't just need the machinery, but you also need the human efforts. And not just the human efforts, but the efficient human efforts. And the efficiency will be coming obviously from the skills and also with the experience. So when you do a computer course for example, आपको कंप्यूटर के बेसिक किस बारे में, ऑपरेशंस के बारे में, सिस्टम्स के बारे में पता लग गया, बट until you actually operate it, you will not be able to satisfy the proper I should say the output of the skill that you have achieved. What I'm trying to say कि जो स्किल्स आपने एकेडमिकली एक्वायर करी हैं, जब तक आप उन्हें एक्सपीरियंस में नहीं लेकर आओगे, ना तो उनकी परफेक्शन आएगी और ना आपको ये पता लग पाएगा कि वो स्किल्स आपके यूज़ की हैं या नहीं. And you will slowly feel that the more and more of the use of these skills is done in practical life, that is, more is the experience of using the skills, you will always on your own see that there is a distinct improvement in your performance. So why we are making all these idealistic talks? Because we are concerned today with the topic labor turnover. And this labor turnover in simple sense implies that before I move to labor turnover, when we normally use the word turnover, then we relate it to the sales. So we always say that high turnover is good for the business because we are referring to the sales, that is the goods turnover. And if we say by default the turnover is high, we mean to say that the sales of the business is high and it will obviously result in higher profitability of the business. But if we go into certain details, then this turnover actually denotes the ratio of the change, the speed of the change. So when we say by default turnover, we are actually denoting the goods turnover. So if the goods turnover is high, it means goods are being replaced again and again. It means you are selling the goods and you are again buying the goods. It denotes that your sales is high, which means high profitability. If we apply the same principle here, that is the labor turnover, so it does not denote the output of the human being, that is the labor, but it denotes that with what speed the labor is being turned on or the turn off, और सिंपल भाषा में कितनी स्पीड से लेबर बदल रही है, लेबर टर्नओवर हो रही है, मतलब वर्कर्स चेंज हो रहे हैं. और उस चेंज ऑफ वर्क फोर्स को ही हम लोग सिंपल भाषा में क्या बोल रहे हैं आज के डेट में इकोनॉमिक चैनल्स के ऊपर, एट्रिशन. So it means if we say that the IT industry is at the moment suffering high attrition, it means there is high labor turnover. It means either more and more people are resigning or leaving the job, that's what we use the word separation, or because they have changed or because they have changed their job profile, it means more and more people are being replaced by the new employees. What is that? That either a worker has left the job and the company has not been able to find its replacement, it means the vacancy is going vacant, or a person has left the job and the company is able to find the replacement because old employee has shunted out, but because it has been replaced and though the new employee was skillful, but it may have been lacking the experience of working in that environment, and that is why they both will denote to the attrition, that is the labor turnover. And we believe that this high attrition, either due to separation or replacement, will reduce the efficiency because of the lack of experience, and this reduced efficiency will increase the cost because you will get less output from the same wage payments, and this increase in cost will obviously decrease the profitability. That is why each and every company wants that this labor turnover should be controlled. So we will study effectively what is labor turnover, what are its disadvantages, and if there are any advantages for it, and how this labor turnover is calculated, and how and why this labor turnover should always be controlled. So simply speaking, when we use the word labor turnover, what it denotes, that how much employees are being, what I'm saying, how much employees, how much labor force is either being separated, means they have left the job, or they have been replaced, that is A has replaced B, or both. So when we will measure only the separations, then we use the word separation method of calculating labor turnover. When we count only the replacements, then obviously we will use the word replacement method. And if we count both, then we use the word flux method. So what a company does, that it always measures for a particular period how much employees were working in the company in the beginning of the period. So we use the word opening number of employees, that is how much employees were there in the beginning, and how much employees are there at the end of the period in observance. So closing number of employees. So obviously if closing number of employees is more, it means new employees have been added. And if it is a vice versa, that is closing employees are less than the opening employees, then obviously there is high attrition and various employees have been separated. But instead of this simple concept, there is also a figure that it can happen that in the beginning there were 100 employees, in the end there were 20 employees, but it does not denote that 20 are the new employees, because it may happen that out of the original 100, 40 has resigned and the balance of 60 was increased by 60 by new employments. So it can happen that in spite of 40 separations, there is 60 new additions. So effectively in this case, what is happening, that actually in this case there is only 40 which have been replaced and the 20 are the new additions. So in this case 40 is the figure of replacement and 20 is the figure of addition, new addition. So effectively what is happening here, that if more number of employees are being separated, and that is why the addition is high, but the result impact is only a 20. So therefore more about 40 plus 20, these 60 work environments, these 60 workstations will have the impact of attrition, and therefore it will gravely reduce the output, because it is not like that we have added 20 new employees and they have added to the production, but instead there are 60 new employments which are affecting the output at 60 workstations, and therefore in this example the output will be heavily impacted and there will be a huge impact of attrition on the company's profitability. That is why we take the average of opening and the closing number of employees, and their average obviously is known as average number of employees working in a factory. So we try to estimate the labor turnover rate based on the separations or the replacements or both in comparison to the average number of employees. So before we move into that, we have to understand what that this labor turnover can be because of various causes, and these causes are industry specific. So the reasons are so many. It may be that there are internal reasons that relates to the industry, not in general, but to the specific corporate culture, or we should say the specific organization. So these internal organizations are unique to the corporate company which we are discussing, and they may be external reasons, and these external reasons can either be because of the effect on the overall economy or the personal needs which are changing in this current scenario, or the whole industry is looking for new options. For example, for example, we all have just suffered, and we should say still suffering, the after effects of this deadly virus corona, and it has shifted the work culture from the normal office to the work from home. And this long work culture from home has adversely impacted the work environment and also the needs of the workers. So there may be so many workers who during the time of working from home have acquired new needs, and those new needs and their work satisfaction level must have changed, which may force them to leave their current job, or they may shift from job to the self-employed character. Now, it is not a generalized phenomena, but it could have happened to many people. So, what could have happened? That this change in their taste, this change in their work culture may have prompted them to leave the job and cause separation. So, this could have been induced by the workers' mentality being affected during this corona period. Or the another example could have been that so many people, when there was a lockdown impact of corona, then so many people, they have been taken away from their job. That is, the corporates, instead of understanding the implications of removing the employees, they have laid off so many employees. So there were so many laid offs, and those who were in non-essential sectors were the biggest sufferers. And this laid off caused financial stress, huge financial stress to the worker, and many of them have broken emotionally, have got into depression, and many of them has shifted their work profile. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, जब स्कूल्स बंद हुए तो बहुत सारे लोग जो स्कूल्स की ट्रैवल का काम कर रहे थे, प्राइवेट कैब्स वगैरह चला रहे थे, एंड दे वर सेटिस्फाइड इन देयर जॉब. बट व्हेन द स्कूल्स वर नाउ क्लोज फॉर ऑलमोस्ट 2 years, so they were not having for the first 3 4 5 months, they could have been waiting for the work to resume. But because the schools lockdown took so many years, it took around 2 years to come to the normal, and that too at the moment is not normal, we should say, but moving towards being normal. And in this long time, those persons must have suffered huge financial stress, and must have prompted many of them to change their work profile, and now they could have been satisfied with their current job profile. And that is why when we are now coming to the schools environment, the parents are finding it very very difficult to find those persons who are running the cabs. So either we are not getting the cabs, or we were not getting the drivers, and having an impact on our performance. There could have been several reasons. Now, this was one of the reasons which could have been external to the industry or the company we are discussing. For any internal reason, we could have pointed to the fact कि कंपनी में आपने वर्कर को कैसा वर्क एनवायरनमेंट दिया। तो आपका वर्क कल्चर आपका बहुत कोर्सिव तो नहीं है, या वर्क कंडीशंस कि वर्कर को आपने वर्क की कंडीशंस कैसी दी हैं, मतलब कोई बेनिफिट्स है नहीं है वर्कर के लिए। ठीक है, वर्कर का वर्क सेटिस्फेक्शन, अगर वर्कर अपने काम से सेटिस्फाई नहीं है तो ही मे बी इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ शिफ्टिंग हिज जॉब प्रोफाइल। या वर्कर की स्किल डेवलपमेंट, अगर वर्कर की स्किल डेवलपमेंट के आपके पास ऑप्शंस होंगे या प्रोवाइड करोगे, देन ही विल फील more skillful and he will be able to adapt to new work environments. So if the company is lacking in any of these reasons, and one of the most important reasons is the increments, the salary, the money aspect. And if though you are lacking in that, then everybody wants improvement, and this lack of increment will prompt many of the workers to shift. So this could be company specific, because some company will be having all good, that is good work culture, good work condition, always room for improvement, and they give regular increments to the workers as per their performance. So this incentive could have been supplemented with performance incentives. With performance incentives. ठीक है जी. So what we are saying, that either the reasons could be internal to the company specific, or they may be generalized, but they may cause workers to leave the job, and this attrition, this leaving of job by the workers will prompt the company to fill in their vacancy, and to satisfy the increased demand of the product, they may also try to involve more and more workers. That is why we believe that if the company is able to satisfy the internal needs and help the workers in combating with the external pressure and also adapt itself, then they can reduce their labor turnover, and it will hugely solve their labor turnover issues. That is, that will result in low attrition and will not affect much the performance and the output of the company. So there should always be low turnover. But in addition to this, there are also certain positive impacts of the labor turnover, because it is not always good to carry on with the existing workers, because they may be lacking in performance. Though there could be a case of lack of desired performance by existing employees, so by existing labor. It means that the labor that was employed by the HR department of the company have failed to incorporate the desired labor force, which was ready to give good performance by upgrading their skills as per the requirements of the output. Also, also there could have been certain disciplinary issues. So there some non-disciplined actions by various workers could force the company to remove such workers. There could have been certain reasons which basically require the labor turnover. That is, such workers who are not up to the mark of the desired performance levels, they need to be either taken off or being replaced. So if the such targeted persons are not contributing to any demand satisfaction of the company, and still the company is able to achieve their demand with the existing labor force, then these workers are actually useless, and they may be separated, or they may be replaced to cover up for any demand glitches. So in this way, this removal or separation or replacement of these non-performing labor will be a boost, and hence labor turnover could always, which could always be a positive impactful in certain cases. So whatever the thing is, mainly the high labor turnover will bring more negatives than positives to the business, and hence the company's HR department has to fulfill its duties perfectly, so that they select and appoint only those workers who have the eligibility and the skills and the motivation to conquer the desired levels of performances. On this note, now we move on to the calculation of the labor turnover. So we use the word labor turnover rates. So higher labor turnover rate will denote high labor turnover, and hence all other things that have been discussed earlier will come into play. So we can either say that we only count the number of employees which have been separated on a particular period note. So the number of employees which have been separated during a period, if we count them and compare them with with the average number of employees during that period, and compare them with the average number of employees during that period, then we will have this labor turnover rate. And because we are only counting the separations, so we use the word separation method. So in this way we can calculate the labor turnover rate. Another option could be that we compare not how much employees are separated but how much employees are being replaced. So we only count the replacements, the number of employees which have been replaced during a period, and they need to be compared with the average number of employees during that period, and that will also denote the labor turnover rate. And because only replacements are being counted, so we say that this is the replacement method. This is the replacement method to calculate the labor turnover rate. But whether it's a replacement or whether it's a separation, they both are contributing to the attrition rate, that is the labor turnover rate, and hence we should count both. That is how much employees have been separated plus how much employees have been replaced. सिंपल भाषा में कितने लोगों को एम्प्लॉय ने कंपनी ने रिप्लेस किया, 4 के बदले 4 आए, और जो 2 अनएम्प्लॉयड थे या सॉरी जो अनप्रोडक्टिव थे आपने उन्हें बाहर कर दिया. तो कंपनी ने एक्चुअली में 6 लोगों को बाहर किया, लेकिन 4 को दोबारा हायर कर लिया, उनको किसी और से रिप्लेस कर लिया. तो टोटल एट्रिशन 6 हुए, लेकिन उसमें से 4 क्योंकि रिप्लेस हो गए हैं, तो 6 विल बी रिप्लेसमेंट्स एंड द 4 हैव बीन टेकन ऑफ. So this will include the number of employees separated, number of employees replaced during a period, and that will be divided by the average number of employees during the period as written above. During that period, that will also denote the labor turnover rate, and we use the word flux method. So ideally the percentage of separation plus replacement shall be equal to flux method. We can show them as a ratio, or we can multiply them by 100, and then we can show these rates as a percentage. For example, अगर 6 एम्प्लॉय सेपरेट हुए, 2 एम्प्लॉय रिप्लेस होकर टोटल 6 फिगर थी, और टोटल नंबर ऑफ एम्प्लॉयज आपके पास लेट्स से कि 80 था, तो वी कैन राइट इट 6/80, or we can write it as 6/80 into 100. So it will come out to be around 7.5%. So we can say that the labor turnover rate is 6/80, यानी कि हर 80 में से टोटल एवरेज 80 एम्प्लॉय में से 6 लोग कंपनी या तो रिप्लेस कर लेती है या सेपरेट कर देती है. और वी कैन से दैट अंडर द फ्लक्स मेथड द एट्रिशन रेट, द लेबर टर्नओवर रेट इज 7.5%. So it's up to the company which method they want to follow, but a good company should always look into the reasons of high attrition. If the high attrition or the high labor turnover is due to the internal factors and they don't want this high attrition, then they should take corrective action and improve the anomalies of the internal environment as requested by the uh, outgoing employees, or if we have taken their feedback, then their feedback should be taken into account to improve on the internal environment so that this labor turnover problem does not linger for long. And if the assessment of the company shows that this high turnover, this high attrition is primarily because of the external factors, then they can always analyze that whether this is a long-term scenario or a short-term scenario, or it's a cyclical issue. So if it is a cyclical or short-term problem, then they can always expect the problem to be solved, and they should always look for the greener future ahead. And that is why this low cycle of output due to high attrition could have been substituted by high output, low turnover in the future. And that is how you see a green future ahead. So we all should always try as a corporate HR manager to not just reduce the labor turnover, but also look for the reasons for the labor turnover and take the corrective action if it is possible to solve the problem. I hope this all discussion was of use to you. On this note, myself Deepak Gupta, logging off from this platform of College Dekho Learn on YouTube. Hope to see you